Thank you very much, Hannah, also for the introduction. Indeed, I think I've met most of you already as part of the interfaces team. And indeed, today I would like to speak about research, the work we've done on funding of transdisciplinary research. And I think as within the program, we all have experience with the challenges also coming with conducting transdisciplinary research. And to some extent, those challenges also lie within the structure of the funding program. And this is a topic that I have delved into together also with several of you and other people during this year. So I would like to tell more about what we have been doing and what came out of it. Yeah, so I'd briefly like to introduce to you a bit of the background. What do we speak about when we speak about transdisciplinary research and the challenges? Then coming to the objectives that we have set ourselves within the Interfaces project, then the main activities we've conducted in 2024 and the output coming out of it. Hannah already mentioned that I'd like to share a short video with you also on that one, and then to briefly discuss the outlook on what we're planning to do until the end of the project. So I'd like to start with this slide showing a graph of all the interfaces activities. So as a accompanying project, we diverge a bit from, I don't know, a classical research and development program. So on the one hand, we have like today, we have the capacity development activities, then we have the outreach and knowledge management, which was also part of producing the video, for example, I'm showing today. Then we're also working on research itself, so particularly implementation or transfer analysis, we call it, or implementation research. And then this circle around it, it's where the interface comes in, and we're also trying to get into a dialogue with policy, science and practice and social learning activities. And yeah, it's in this circle, so to speak, around surrounding all our activities that the work I've been doing on research funding is located. So on the one hand, as Hannah said, I've been doing meta research on German public funding of transdisciplinary research, particularly in the area of sustainable land management and agricultural development in Africa. But at the same time, we've also initiated a dialogue between German and African researchers, research funders, science policymakers, and practitioners on this specific topic. So first of all, I'd like to speak about transdisciplinary research and what are we actually trying to achieve with this. So transdisciplinary research, it's a research mode, and I think also within our program, it was part of the goal that we were asked to conduct our research within this transdisciplinary research mode. And it's particularly suitable to address complex societal issues, of which also sustainability challenges are part. And yeah, the idea is that through transdisciplinary research, it's possible to bring together different thought styles, then throughout the research process, be able to produce new knowledge which can have an actual societal impact and also contribute to the larger transformation towards more sustainable future. Then, to my understanding, this integration of different ideas or thought styles is coming in within the context that we're working. It's particularly coming in through interdisciplinarity, so collaboration between disciplines. Then very important within transdisciplinary research is participation of non-academic actors. These can be your, so to say, your stakeholders, your local knowledge holders, your local communities, but also your policymakers that you're working with within the research team. And particularly important is that this participation takes place at a very early stage, so at the development of of the problem, of the research question, of the problem definition. And then, of course, within our context of working between Global North and Global South, also this collaboration between intercultural, I would say, intercultural collaboration between partners is part of achieving the integration between different thought styles within the transdisciplinary research process. Okay, so this is our theoretic picture, our ideal idea about transdisciplinary research. And of course, we all know that it comes with its challenges when we look at the real world. So I listed a few challenges coming from literature, but probably I could also ask any of you, would you come up with similar challenges? So one is flexibility. That is very much needed with transdisciplinary research, and often this is not given within the funding program or the funding framework that we're working in. And another important challenge is also the time-bound setting of working within projects. And here, often if we want to work with, for example, local communities, there's the need to build trust, and within short-term projects this is often challenging, which can also lead again to reluctance to work with researcher, particularly in over-research areas in African countries. So that's the time issue. And then there is also within the existing funding frameworks where funding often comes from the Global North to do research in the Global South, there are also a risk to have structural inequalities embedded actually in the setting of how financial resources are being allocated. And this again, for example, African partners joining in late when themes are being set, and this again limits their role in knowledge co-creation. So I think these challenges, although transdisciplinary research have been around for long, these challenges, there's awareness on it, but I think there is also more of maybe a recent urgent understanding that in order to actually implement transdisciplinary research, there is need for institutional change also within our science systems, including in the funding programs, and that this is necessary to get to a more genuine transdisciplinary research mode. So this is what we've tried to respond to within the Interfaces project, and we set ourselves the objective to, on the one hand, conduct research. There we really focus on funding of research in the area of sustainable land management and agriculture development in Africa, funded by public German funders. So we've mainly looked at Ministry of Education and Research, Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, and Ministry of Food and Agriculture, so BMBF, BMZ and BMEL. And we've tried to see how within their funding frameworks, funding transdisciplinary research, how they've tried to embed elements of transdisciplinarity within their funding framework, trying to adopt to better suit, so to say, the requirements. And then also to see what are considered to be good practices in enabling transdisciplinary research by different actors that are involved. So on the one hand, that's a research topic, but at the same time, we've also used it to engage in a dialogue, and we would like to formulate recommendations for funders coming out of it, and also advocate and disseminate those recommendations. So now briefly on what we've been doing, what have been our activities in 2024. I've actually started with conducting key expert interviews with different stakeholders already in 2023. So with people coming from funding agencies related to the different ministries, and then also researchers working in those projects or programs in Germany and also in Africa. Then after that, in June this year, we had a workshop in Germany, call it here the German Dialogue Forum, with German research funders or people representing funding agencies and researchers. Then we have repeated a similar workshop in October in Accra, where again we invited Ghanaian researchers, but also science policymakers and practitioners, but also a few researchers coming from Francophone Western Africa, Kenya and Namibia, so it was a bit broader. And then just now 2 weeks ago in November, we organized a panel session bringing together participants from the 2 workshops at the International Conference for Inter and Transdisciplinary Research, which was at University of Utrecht in the Netherlands. So I don't know if you can recognize in the picture, but these are also some of our colleagues within the program. Yeah, so now I'm actually coming to our short video that we produced together, so as interfaces together with Farah and Eidos, to show a little bit some impressions and some perspectives which were shared during the workshops. So I would like to briefly stop sharing my screen and then ask Hannah to share the video with you. It's actually going to be
Can you see it already?
I have to first stop sharing, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Ida says he can see it already, so now I'm hitting the button. Can you hear it?
Yes.
I think for me, at the top of my head, the main challenges usually is how to manage interest, because any funder from the North has already vested interest on why they're putting their taxpayers' money onto the project. So then, in that broad scheme where the agenda was actually set from the North, it is for us, the African researchers, to now contextualize it and be able to come up with research questions that would address our specific needs. At that point then, the agenda became collaborative in the sense that we found value in what the funders' interest was in terms of embedding that interest into our own local interests.
There, you have a co-production of knowledge, of new knowledge, of experiences, and also practices for the stakeholders in the field. So, and here you have very much integration challenges of very different actors, and this has to be valued also by funding restrictions, by funding conditions. How do resources not only arrive at the researchers, but also to the practitioners which are part of the project.
Various interactive processes are an integral part actually of the management of the funding instrument. These processes contribute to the continuous development and adaptation. So, for example, within the process of developing calls for research proposals, participatory workshops are conducted with various stakeholders and experts from the target regions. And during these workshops, the importance really to equally integrate local knowledge besides academic knowledge into the research was repeatedly emphasized. So this reinforced the approach of the funding instrument and encouraged the BMEL, the ministry, even more to explicitly promote and support transdisciplinary research approaches.
Along the different stages of funding and managing research projects, funders can take specific measures to enable and facilitate transdisciplinary research, some of which are particularly important in the context of North-South research collaboration.
From today's workshop, I've learned a lot. I liked very much the stepwise approach to receiving proposals and then selecting applicants for funding their project. This stepwise approach involves first collecting ideas from participants and then selecting based on those ideas, bringing them together after they are selected to take them through a training together with the intended stakeholders. And that already means that you are building trust with your stakeholders. You are also bonding and you are making arrangements for an effective partnership that will make sure that the project is well implemented. I think this is an eye-opener for me. This is something that is good. I am not a donor. I do not fund projects, but I think this is something that I could suggest to the type of donors that we work with.
Thank you, Hannah. I think some of you might also have seen yourself passing by in the video. I'll start sharing my screen again. Yeah, so we produced a video also to present at a conference at a panel session last week, which was a very nice input to start off the discussion. At the same time, we'd like to use it for further outreach and continuing the dialogue. Yeah, but besides the video, we also, I don't know, sorry, I clicked a bit. Okay. Besides the video, we also published a working paper, mainly based on the interviews and the first workshop. And yes, in the working paper, we describe a bit in more detail what the different funding frameworks for transdisciplinary look like of the, yeah, I mentioned before, the 3 ministries. And here we could see that indeed several research funders are increasingly interested in supporting transdisciplinary research. So transdisciplinary research has been around for a bit and there have been challenges, but several funders are really trying to get the hang of it and learning by doing and experimenting with new practices. And what we could see is that there, within the funding cycle, there are specific, I would call them targeted measures that funders can take to actually support transdisciplinary research. However, it's right now it's still a bit erratic how these practices are implemented, and transdisciplinarity, that we see that there is a possibility to enhance transdisciplinarity research if those measures become more common practice and also more widely known amongst the different funders. So what we actually did during these workshops is that we looked with the participants at the different stages within a funding program. Of course, some stages are a bit more behind the scenes, for example, project selection, and it's more relevant to speak with funding agencies on what's actually going on. But for example, program preparation is about also setting up the call for proposals, and this is also visible to all of us. Whereas, I don't know, maybe more the strategic thinking about how to set up programs, who to collaborate with is also less well known by the research teams themselves, but these are all part of where the themes are set and where the problem definition basically is being set, and that's the part of the funding cycle that we have concentrated on. And then for each of these stages, we've looked at experiences of all the workshop participants, and to really see what have they experienced in alternative practices or funders trying to approach things differently. And based on that, we want to come up with recommendations. We already have formulated some preliminary recommendations, and where we really can see that at these different stages, funders can address the challenges with transdisciplinary research in different ways. So one way, for example, to address the time constraints within research programs is to try to combine research and development funding, so that the research phase could be funded by a research funder, whereas a development funder could focus more on the implementation phase, which are then integrated. Of course, I would like to highlight these are not new ideas, and these are also things that have been tried in the past, but we're recommending that these are approaches with which transdisciplinary research could be enhanced, and that it would be of interest for funders to look further into these if they really want to support and enable transdisciplinary research. Then at the stage of the selection process and writing calls for proposal, it's important to explicitly define transdisciplinary research criteria. So, for example, include an assessment of the transdisciplinary research approach, or a theory of change within a proposal. Then, on the other hand, this could leave out other aspects. So, for example, in that case, you focus more on the transdisciplinary research process and less on predefined interventions or technologies that the project wants to look at, because this is something that maybe you only want to specify during the problem definition phase, or how to say, while you're working together also with local stakeholders. Then something that came out and was very prominently was the benefits of funded phase specifically for joint proposal writing. I think at each of the workshops and events, this was really highlighted, even though there are some disadvantages as well. But it was also, for example, during our workshop in Accra, somebody really promoted it not only as a way to write a proposal together, but also as a test of partnerships, so that you can also use this phase to see whether this team is actually able to work together and agree on a transdisciplinary research approach. Then another recommendation is more regarding the allocation of funds and the budget allocation, is that there's always this request for flexibility, of course, within I would say, accounting systems. There is a limit to fluctuations of budgets. However, there are other ways that transdisciplinary activities can simply get more space within budgets, so that more funds are allocated specifically for those activities of stakeholder engagement, and also specific positions responsible for facilitating the interaction between research and practice within the transdisciplinary research community. This is the term integration expert is becoming popular to really define this role of, you could also call it facilitator between research and practice. So these are some of the things that have come out of the work we've done with the many people attending the different workshops. However, we still would like, it's still fresh, and we'd still like to consolidate the output from the different events in final recommendations and a policy brief. Then we're planning to have another meeting, bringing together both the German and African participants who all expressed interest in this, to again validate the recommendations. Then the idea is to find ways to advocate and disseminate those recommendations across funders. One possibility, for example, is to organize a workshop at the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture in January 2026 in Berlin. But if you have any other ideas, this is also very welcome. We're also working on publishing our findings in a journal article. I'm working together with Peter and David on this. And one other potential spin-off of particularly the workshop in Accra would be maybe a network or a group of African researchers and interested in transdisciplinary research. But maybe, yes, this is something that also came up during that workshop. So these are my references, and I would like to thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and I'm looking forward to a discussion with you.